From News and Information 570 AM, this is the Stinchfield Report.
When it comes to this refugee bill that has come out of the House of Representatives, waiting for a vote on the Senate's not going to pass it because we've got an idiot like Mitch McConnell who lets Harry Reid run the Senate instead of the Republican majority, so it's going to die. But when you look at this bill, I want to make it clear here, this is not a bill to say we're not taking any refugees. I actually might make an argument that that may be the prudent thing to do right now, but that's not even what this bill does. This bill says we're not taking any refugees unless the three heads of you've got Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and National Intelligence all sign off on each refugee and say, hey, we've done our background checks, and I'm personally signing off on this individual is not going to be a terrorist. Now, what that does, that instills accountability into the program. Who doesn't want accountability in all this? Apparently, the Democrats. All right, 888-787-KLIF, 888-787-5543. Direct line to the studio. Eric Cedillo is an attorney here in North Texas, CedilloLaw.com. Eric, it's great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me, Grant.
So what do you think of this bill?
Well, in all honesty, Grant, I think the practical effect is that it'll probably deny Syrian refugees the opportunity to come over. I think the standard is such that I would find it the unanimity between those three agencies to come together and certify that an individual isn't a threat to security is going to be such that it's. I couldn't imagine that happening. Whether or not that's a good or bad thing, I think the practicality of it all is that we're not probably, if this does pass, and I'm not so sure about the Senate, in terms of what's happening, and the House is kind of, even if President Obama vetoes it, I think they have the votes to have it pass, that this isn't going to become the law. So quite honestly, I think the practicality of it is that there's a good chance that we won't be having any Syrian refugees coming over.
All right, so let's look at why the practicality is of that, and I tend to agree with you. The reason why it's going to be very difficult for the head of national intelligence or the FBI to certify that we know these guys are good, or these gals are good, or these orphans are good, as the president likes to say, is because there's no background information on any of these refugees.
Well, you're right to the extent that the nation of Syria, it's more difficult to vet individuals with respect to their background and other things, much more so than if someone perhaps were coming from France or Germany. But the Syrian people are relatively well documented in terms of the service in the military, things of that nature. But it is a country that is different. It's a little bit more difficult. I said what I said earlier.
Well, not only is it difficult, Eric, we don't have access to that information. Look, Bashir Assad is not going to give us access to whether or not these people are good or not. See, the difference
between... They don't really have that information either, yeah.
Well, yeah, and he may or may not have it, and we're not going to get access to it. Now, when the Iraqi refugees were coming over, the United States had controlled Iraq. We had basically taken it over. We had access to all those government records.
Yeah.
That's the difference here.
Yeah, and also, quite honestly, I could see the possibility of these three getting together, and perhaps with respect to children and some other individual refugees that might be able to come over, that might be a possibility. So, qualifying what I'd said earlier, in terms of who might actually be able to survive the scrutiny that this bill kind of lays out.
So to make it clear so everybody at home knows, the bill isn't saying we're not taking any of them. It's just saying we need to do our job vetting them. Now, you say the bar is so high no one will get through, or over the bar, so to speak. But it really isn't a bill about banning Syrian refugees, and that's almost the way the left talks about it.
Yeah. Well, it isn't, and it doesn't say that. And quite honestly, I think, like I said earlier, there might be some individuals who these three would feel comfortable in certifying that they are not a threat to the security of the United States. Like I say, those would probably be, I would imagine, mainly women and children. children especially, if they have individuals over here with families and other things that might be able to partake of the refugee program.
Have you looked into the refugees that are here already? We've already taken a few thousand. I know there's over 100 Syrian refugees in North Texas, and this was something we talked about on the show earlier in the week. People were shocked to learn that we already have Syrian refugees here. The president talks about them being women and children. All the video that I see of the massive outflow of refugees, it doesn't look like there's very many women in those groups.
Well, quite honestly, there's a immigration distinction between refugees and perhaps individuals who partake or attempt to benefit from what's called TPS. Syria was a TPS nation, meaning temporary protected status. So if individuals had come to this country asking for the benefit of TPS, you've got a lot of Syrians who may have already taken advantage of that program, and they are here based on temporary protected status. Now, that program ended, I believe, sometime in the summer. It began in January of this year and ended in the summer, so people can no longer take advantage of that. Refugees, by definition, are individuals who are outside the country who are put into the refugee program, again, after the vetting process.
There's also a distinction between refugees and migrants.
Right.
And what I fear here is we're talking about all of these Syrians as if they're refugees. I think many of them are actually just migrants.
Well, I guess that's a possibility. But refugees, with respect to what America is concerned with, are simply individuals who have to be designated as such. So the designation of a refugee is, again, someone outside the country who's got the fear of persecution in their homeland, and then that's when they become or designated, someone is applying for refugee status as opposed to some other status.
I know what bothers a lot of folks. It bothers even me. I don't know if it bothers you when you see the video of these young men, 20-something years old, young 30s, and you think about their country now is just being taken over by not only ISIS but Bashir Assad is a brutal dictator willing to commit violence against his own people. You have the rebel forces in this country. Why are these young men not picking up arms and joining the rebels to fight ISIS, to fight Bashir Assad, and try to take their country back? That's what Americans do. That's what other countries do when their country is falling before their eyes. They take up arms and they try to save it. Instead, they're running to America, and I think that's what gets folks a little upset.
Well, quite honestly, I'm not sure. There's so many moving parts in Syria. You've got the Kurds and, of course, the rebels and everyone else, ISIS, and you don't really know what the motivations are for a lot of them. I think it's just you're talking about a nation of 22 million and 11 million are being displaced. So it's an incredibly fluid situation. I don't know that they know who the enemies are, quite honestly.
There are two enemies that are very clear there, Eric. Look, the Kurdish forces are really the rebel forces, and so the Kurds are somewhat a friend of the United States. God bless some of the Kurds and the work that they're doing, and especially some of the Kurds that have come out of Turkey and to go fight in Syria. You know what? God bless every one of them. It's amazing. The Peshmerga, they are up against it. They're ill-equipped. We've given weapons to folks in Iraq to arm the Peshmerga, and the Iraqi forces steal all the good stuff and give the Peshmerga the hand-me-downs. I'm just telling you, if I saw my nation falling like this, and I'm 47 years old, I'm telling you, you'd have to stand up and say, I'm taking this back.
Yeah, that may be true, yeah.
Eric Cedillo, I appreciate you coming on. CedilloLaw.com is the website. It's a great pleasure. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for having me, sir.
All right, sounds good.